Imagine it's a completely normal Tuesday back in 2023. You're in Tokyo.
Okay.
And suddenly, Google Maps goes down. Just for a few hours.
A tiny glitch.
Right, a temporary glitch. But the fallout from that it was actually staggering. Within minutes, traffic in certain districts just ground to a complete halt.
It literally paralyzed the grid.
Exactly. 40% of surveyed drivers reported being completely unable to find their way home.
We aren't talking about complex delivery routes here.
No, we're talking about their daily commutes.
Mm-hmm.
People were pulling over in sheer panic. Delivery networks froze. It was this glaring vulnerability in human capability that just got exposed out of nowhere.
Most of us would brush that off as, a frustrating tech hiccup.
Yeah. But our source for today's deep dive looks at that Tokyo blackout and sees a massive biological red flag.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are unpacking an incredibly provocative text. It's called AI Cognitive Collapse, Evolutionary Crisis and the Collapse of Mental Autonomy.
Written by Xander Grimm. He's an independent researcher, and he approaches this whole issue not from the perspective of a tech ethicist, but really through the lens of evolutionary biology and neuroscience.
This is a frontier document. Grimm is taking a surgical look at what physically happens to the architecture of our brains when we chronically outsource our thinking to algorithms.
And he's not saying technology is evil. It's not a Luddite manifesto.
No, not at all. It's an exploration of this silent phenomenon he calls neural pruning by digital disuse.
Neural pruning, and the scary part is, it's completely invisible to you until the server goes down.
Right.
Every single time you delegate a mental task to an algorithm, whether you're mapping a route or asking for a historical fact or having it write a work email, your brain is actively altering itself.
It dismantles the structures.
Exactly. The biological hardware detects that external software is doing the heavy lifting for free, so it just shuts down those cognitive centers to save energy.
Grimm actually uses a mathematical formula early on to frame this, which I think is brilliant. He redefines how we understand intelligence itself.
Oh, the I equals D over DTK formula.
Yes. So he argues that intelligence isn't K. It isn't the total volume of knowledge you possess or have access to on your phone.
Right, because having an encyclopedia in your pocket doesn't make you smart.
Exactly. He defines intelligence as the derivative of that knowledge over time, the rate of change.
So in plain English,
In plain English, intelligence is the active, high-friction process of generating a solution when you face a novel problem. It's the struggle.
it's the struggle,
Yeah.
which completely upends how we interact with modern tech. Because if you type a prompt into an AI and it spits out a flawless answer instantly,
The time and effort drop to zero.
the friction is gone. So according to Grimm's math, in that specific moment, the intelligence you actively generated is also zero. You get the output, but you completely bypass the cognitive exercise that builds your brain.
And we're already seeing the fallout from this. Grimm cites a 2024 MIT study that is just sobering.
The one with the history students.
Yeah. Researchers asked modern university students to memorize historical data and then compared their recall to baseline metrics from students in 1985.
And the modern students retained only 40% of what the 1985 cohort remembered. 40%.
Because the student in 1985 had to physically walk to a library.
Right.
They had to flip through a card catalog, find the book, write down the notes by hand. That physical friction was the memory encoding process.
Today, we're suffering from digital Sherrington syndrome. We rely so heavily on the cloud that our brains simply stop dedicating synaptic connections to storing facts.
We've all felt it. It's the Google effect.
Yes, you don't remember the information, you just remember the search query you used to find it.
Yeah.
Or where the folder is saved.
Your brain evaluates the environment and decides, hey, indexing the location of the data is way more energy efficient than synthesizing it.
But the trade-off is huge. We lose deep memory, the kind of subconscious memory you need to combine different facts and generate actual original ideas.
We trade it for superficial indexing.
Think about your own day, right? When you're writing an email, you probably let autocorrect or Grammarly fix your spelling without a second thought.
Guilty.
We all do it. But the Cambridge research in the book shows that constant reliance physically reduces activation in your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex.
The brain's error monitoring center.
Yes.
Yeah.
You aren't just getting lazy with spelling. Your internal editor is literally atrophying. You are losing the metacognition required to monitor your own mistakes.
And that biological atrophy brings us to a core mechanism, the efficiency trap.
Break that down for us.
Well, the human brain is an incredibly demanding organ. It consumes roughly 20% of your body's resting energy, even though it's a tiny fraction of your weight.
It's an energy hog.
Exactly. So it operates on this ruthless cost-benefit analysis based on Hebb's law.
Neurons that fire together wire together.
Right, and neurons that stop firing together die together. If they aren't actively firing to solve a problem, because an AI just solved it for you, those pathways are trimmed away.
Which brings us back to the drivers in Tokyo. They couldn't navigate because the neurological hardware to do it was offline. Studies from University College London show that chronic GPS dependence suppresses activity in the posterior hippocampus.
It actually reduces the physical volume of gray matter there.
We are sacrificing our allocentric memory, our organic ability to map the physical world, and we're replacing it with a virtualized hippocampus on a server somewhere in California.
And spatial mapping is just the canary in the coal mine here. Grimm takes this into what he calls assisted executive atrophy.
Okay, this is where I want to push back just a little bit.
Sure.
Isn't this just the natural evolution of tools? When we invented the pocket calculator, we stopped doing long division by hand, but our general intelligence didn't collapse. Why is AI any different?
It's a critical distinction. A calculator performs arithmetic computation. AI performs cognitive reasoning.
Okay.
When you use a calculator, you still have to understand the math formula. You set up the variables, you interpret the result, you own the architecture of the problem.
You're just outsourcing the tedious calculation part.
Exactly. But when you use a generative AI, you outsource the architecture itself. The machine dictates the logical structure. That is what triggers the prefrontal atrophy.
Plus the dopamine hit.
Oh, the immediate cognitive reward syndrome.
Right. Wrestling with a difficult problem, reading a dense paper. It burns glucose. It's frustrating. But AI gives us this clean, immediate dopamine hit.
Instant gratification.
Over time, your brain starts to literally label deep, slow thinking as a punishment. We lose our biological tolerance for ambiguity, what Grimm calls productive boredom.
And that intolerance leads to a really unsettling philosophical concept in the book, the interface subject.
Yeah, this part gave me chills.
It forces you to ask a deeply uncomfortable question. Are we actually using these machines to enhance our lives, or are we just becoming the biological interfaces that the algorithms use to execute their outputs in the physical world?
It's a terrifying shift in agency. We exist just to feed prompts into a black box, and then we obediently carry out the perfectly formatted plan it spits back at us.
Which is the definition of black box cognition.
We accept these polished answers without any visibility into the causal reasoning behind them.
You get the solution, but you lose the process. And without understanding the process, you strip away your ability to critically evaluate if the solution is flawed or biased or just a total hallucination.
You're flying blind, trusting an oracle you don't understand. And it feels so good because the output is flawless. You look at it and feel this surge of confidence like you achieved that level of competence.
But you didn't. Grimm references a 2024 Stanford study that found users who rely on AI overestimate their actual personal knowledge by 40%.
The illusion of competence.
Yes. We confuse the server's knowledge with our own cortex's knowledge. Because the answer is accessible instantly, we neurologically tag it as something we inherently know.
But cut off the Wi-Fi, and the database is dangerously shallow.
And the stakes are high, especially for professionals. Look at the Harvard Medical School study with the diagnostic AI tools.
The resident doctors.
Right. When these young doctors encountered medical anomalies that fell just outside the algorithm's training data, their confidence completely collapsed.
They performed worse than doctors who didn't have the AI at all.
Because intuition isn't magic. It's the rapid subconscious recognition of complex patterns forged through massive amounts of unassisted experience, through struggle and failure.
If an algorithm constantly intervenes to save you from the friction of failure, you never build that expert instinct. Those residents deferred to the machine even when their gut told them something was wrong.
They hadn't built the internal reps to trust themselves.
It paints a pretty bleak picture. But Grimm doesn't just leave us in despair. The book provides a very actionable framework to reverse this through directed neuroplasticity.
The brain has a molecular switch called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
The biological fertilizer.
Exactly. It stimulates the growth of new neurons and synapses. But the catch is, BDNF is rarely released when you are comfortable. It requires cognitive stress.
It requires difficulty. Which brings us to Grimm's manifesto, productive friction.
If we want our neurosovereignty back, we have to deliberately choose the hard way.
And this ties into his defense of qualia, right?
Yes. Qualia is our subjective, messy, physical experience. The ache of a muscle, the exhaustion of deep focus, the awe of solving a puzzle after hours of failing.
Silicon can't simulate that. It can simulate the output, but not the physical friction of generating it.
Grimm argues that our biology, our capacity to feel effort and pain, is our last unbreachable firewall against algorithmic assimilation.
I find that incredibly empowering. Our biology is the firewall. So how do we actively fortify it? The book outlines a field guide of protocols. We're only going to touch on a few here, but they are completely applicable today.
Just a taste of the operational layer.
Exactly. Let's start with the allocentric calibrator.
This targets that shrinking hippocampus we mentioned. The directive is simple, but honestly terrifying for most people. Leave your smartphone at home and navigate an unfamiliar neighborhood using only a memorized mental map.
You are forcing your brain to re-engage with physical geometry, estimating distances organically. No blue dot telling you where to stand.
The anxiety you feel leaving the phone behind is the exact friction required to physically expand the hippocampus.
Then there's the protocol for impulse control, the forced latency drill, or T5.
When you encounter a problem or forget a piece of trivia, you set a strict 5-minute timer. For those 5 minutes, you are banned from using Google or an AI.
You have to try and solve it on paper. Rely on your own memory and logic. Sitting with that latency, denying the urge to just look it up, is agonizing.
But you realize how often your brain can actually excavate the answer if you just tolerate the delay. You're doing reps for your prefrontal cortex.
The third protocol, analog interpersonal resonance, or AR, shifts to social cognition.
We mediate so much emotion through text and emojis now.
Right, so the AR protocol demands unmediated face-to-face interaction. You maintain unbroken eye contact for 30 to 60 seconds, and you're forbidden from using low-effort words like good, fine, or bad.
You have to articulate your emotions using original metaphors. Neurologically, this is a massive workout. Your prefrontal cortex is straining to synthesize abstract feelings on the fly.
While the eye contact reactivates the mirror neurons, which are the biological foundation of empathy.
Exactly.
And finally, he touches on the spaces we live in with the cognition cisterns protocol, using low digital affordance architecture.
Instead of a hyper-efficient smart home that bends to your every voice command, you intentional design friction back into the environment.
An analog desk with just paper and a fountain pen, physical books. And for kids, removing frictionless digital entertainment and giving them high-latency toys.
Model kits, mechanical puzzles, things that demand physical coordination and delayed gratification.
You're training the brain to respect the pacing of the physical world.
The overarching objective of all this isn't to abandon technology. It's recognizing that cognitive friction isn't a bug in the human operating system.
It's the defining feature that keeps the system running.
But we should be clear, what we've discussed today really represents just a fraction of the framework Grimm develops in the text.
We deliberately stopped before getting into the deepest layers. There is an entire operational framework in the book that we haven't touched on.
Right, there's so much more to unpack regarding how these protocols interact, which is why this deep dive is really just a cartographic entry point. It's a map, not the full territory.
If you want to fortify your own firewall, you can find AI Cognitive Collapse on Amazon. Or you can explore his research directly at xandergrimm.com. It's an essential read for anyone who wants to retain their autonomy.
Look critically at your routines tomorrow. Find one area where you've outsourced your thinking to an algorithm and introduce a deliberate dose of productive friction. Force your prefrontal cortex to wake up.
I want to leave you with one final provocative thought that builds on Grimm's work. If introducing productive friction becomes a recognized health metric like buying organic food or having a boutique gym membership, are we looking at a future cognitive class divide?
That is a terrifying thought.
Will cognitive friction become a luxury that only the privileged have the time to afford, while the working class is forced into hyper-efficient algorithmic compliance just to survive the economy?
The people who can afford to be slow versus the people who have to be fast.
Exactly. If the ultimate goal of modern technology is to eliminate all human error and pain, what happens when we realize that error and pain were the exact evolutionary engines that made us human in the first place? It's something to seriously consider the next time you blindly accept an AI's output. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Embrace the friction.
Until next time.